Hi, hi, hi. Welcome to Leadershipization, all things leadership. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm an internationally recognized leadership and communication coach. I work with both individuals and teams, and my focus is on building leadership intelligence for the individuals and the teams that I'm working with. And I'm here most every Tuesday. I nearly said Thursday, most every Tuesday at around about this time, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So I think it's 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time at the moment. Self esteem. Self esteem is a phrase and a learning that has been popping up a lot lately with my coaching clients. And so, of course, because that's kind of like a catalyst for my thinking, it got me thinking about hmm, this is an interesting and a multi layered topic. So, exactly what impact does a high or a low self esteem have on your leadership? And then, of course, because I like to be able to explain what some of these terms mean, that got me thinking, yeah, I can talk about that in the next leadershipization. However, what's really important is that you start by explaining what is it. So, our self esteem is what, or I'll start again. Our self esteem is how we value and how we see ourselves. And so this comes through in a lot in our behavior and in the language that we use. It's all about our opinions and the beliefs that we have about ourselves. And it kind of wraps up into this overall sense of personal value and self worth. Am I worthy? Am I enough? Which can very often be exactly where our greatest fears are located. So it's also this kind of sense of belonging, of feeling secure, of having an identity. And your self confidence often comes out of that. Uh, it's when it's high, it's all about having really awesome motivation, a strong sense of well-being, a better quality of life. It's kind of like how you see the world and your place in it. Sometimes it gets muddled up in my thinking about it. Sometimes it gets muddled up with your self-respect and your self-worth. And I think probably those things, if you were to plait them together, they give this sense of, or they all contribute to your self-worth and how worthy you feel you are and your sense of identity and your self-confidence. So when your self-esteem is high, it contributes to you understanding your own skills and setting realistic expectations. It also contributes to healthy relationships with others because you've got a healthy relationship with yourself. You understand, you know, and you like yourself. You accept yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses. And it's also around kind of like your ability to not kind of like it's around your ability to assertively ask for what you need at the same time as you're aware of what it is that others might be needing, yeah, and where they're coming from. When your self-esteem is lower, um, you're less sure of your abilities, don't have your own back as much, and you can really doubt your decision making process. It might also be that you've got less motivation, particularly to try new things. No, I don't want to try those new things. Your confidence is likely to be lower. You feel more unworthy. There's probably a lot of negative self talk that's going on as well. Yeah, a lot of negative self talk in here because your critical friend is sitting on your shoulder, looking over your shoulder, commenting about how you're behaving. Too much, way too much self esteem means that sometimes you can overestimate your skills and you feel a sense of entitlement because even though you may, in actual fact, have very few abilities and very few of the skills that are needed to do a particular thing, I'm entitled to this because I am who I am. Now, the real downside of having too much self esteem is that because you think you're already perfect, you're obviously going to be missing out on awesome opportunities to grow, to stretch, to grow, and to challenge yourself. So, what impact then? And yeah, just let me come back a step. You understand here that I'm giving you a very generic kind of an overview of what is self-esteem. What's too much? What's the an ideal amount look like? What does too little present as? So yeah, it's very generic. I'm happy to reach out to me and we'll have a conversation, and I can certainly direct you towards some resources that will help you to develop a greater understanding of self-esteem, because it certainly will be impacting with every single person who's in your workplace, in your life, and particularly in your team. So what kind of impact does all of this have on you as a leader? Well, if it's too high, your ego is going to get in the way because you think you're the only person who can actually do it. You're the person. I'm the best one. I'm not going to waste my time explaining it to anybody else. And so what happens is that it's really hard to let go. Now, I'll give you an example of where this would happen. This could happen where a startup gets a lot of success really quickly and a person has to bring a lot of new staff on, and their ego is out of control because they've had this success really easily. And so they're thinking, hey, I don't have to do anything. Because I don't have to get you to do anything because I already know how to do it. And it can be really hard for them to let go, hard for them to understand that in order for the business to continue to grow, they as an individual need to continue to grow and change. Yeah. Because if you're not growing and changing, your business may continue to have a little bit of success. You may continue to have a little bit of success in your role and in your aspirations to move forward. However, your own lack of self esteem will be what gets in the way. If it's lower, if it's a low self esteem, that will show up in the language that you use. It's more likely to be negative. It may also show up in your posture. It's more likely to be kind of closed rather than standing up tall, confidently, shoulders back, chest out kind of thing. That language might mean that you're actively undermining yourself because you're talking about how you're just this or just that, or how you don't know how to do something. That could contribute to missed opportunities for you where you don't take advantage of something because you're a little bit afraid. And that low self esteem will lead to that doubt. You may be suffering a whole lot from imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm not good enough to actually be here. And so it's hard for you to make those tough decisions because you're worried about what everybody will think about them. And it's also really tough for you to have those difficult conversations that are so essential in order to be a leader. It means also that you may be super critical of everybody else because you don't like the level of self esteem that you see them having. Now, the really weird thing about low self esteem is that it often shows up in as an arrogance. It often shows up as a boasting. I need to put myself forward. I need to boast about my skills, even though I don't really have them, but I don't want anybody to actually see or know that. We promote ourselves a whole lot. And we might also be inclined to be overcritical, particularly of those people that we see as having skills that we might think that we're actually lacking in. So that That low self esteem can show up in two ways. Like it can be quite passive, that person, and allowing everybody else to take advantage of them, or it could just as easily be almost a little bit aggressive and quite arrogant. Now, the thing to remember absolutely is that leadership is a journey. It's full of highs, it's full of lows. You're going to have some of the most awesome successes, and you're also going to make some glorious mistakes. And how you deal with all of those things actually is what reflects your self esteem. When your self esteem is appropriate, it's high, you're more likely to be able to accept feedback graciously without taking everything personally. You're more likely to be resilient. You understand that sometimes you're going to get those difficult conversations and nail them, and other times it's going to be a learning opportunity for you. You're less likely to be giving yourself and your own self talk a really hard time because you like who you are and accept who you are. It's easier for you to build quality relationships out there with your team, with your peers, and with those people who may be above you in the organization. Because you like who you are and you back who you are, you're also much more likely to be able to trust your team, which means that you're actively empowering them. So, I know I've given this a quick overview, but did you see anything of yourself in there? Perhaps what you saw was that as a leader, I've got a low self esteem. In other areas of my life, like if there's a sport you play and you're really doing well at it and you enjoy it, you may have a much higher self esteem. If you feel as though it's low or it needs some work, here are some things to do. First off, is be patient. Be patient. It takes time to change. Now, what a lot of us don't realize is that anything I say to you is an easy concept to understand. It's the application that's difficult. So be aware that, you've spent a lot of time getting to where you are now. And if your self esteem is a little bit dented, you're going to take time to get it back the other way. Work on improving your mental fitness. See mistakes, see failures, see that as opportunities for learning and for growth. Remind yourself, I don't have to be perfect. It's okay to not be perfect. Turn off that critical friend, or what I call with my mental fitness work, I call that your judge. Be kind to yourself. Start being really kind to yourself. Don't give yourself such a hard time. And finally, learn to accept compliments. Now, I could do a whole session on accepting compliments, but learn to accept compliments because people are telling you what they really think. And every time you push one away, you're actually putting yourself down. That's that negative self talk we were talking about before, but you're telling yourself, I don't deserve this. So learn to accept those compliments. How do you accept a compliment? You simply say, thank you, and leave it at that, rather than, oh, really? And coming up with a justification. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched the replay, please put hashtag replay. If you've got questions or you've got comments, pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Look, if you're interested in building your self esteem or your mental fitness, both of which are solid leadership intelligence foundational skills or foundational behaviors, just reach out. Reach out to me on the platform that you're watching this on. Hey, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you back here